Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the council meeting of the Homeless Coordinating and Financing Council. Today's March the 23rd. It is 2:06, and just want to welcome you all again. I'm Lourdes Castro Ramirez. I serve as the Secretary of the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency, and also I'm the Chair of the Homeless Coordinating and Financing Council. I'd like to thank you all for joining us for this quarterly meeting. We did have a special council meeting in February, and so it doesn't seem like it was that long ago that several of us were together, but very much appreciate both the participation of our council members, but also the participation of the public. Before moving on to official business, I'd like to welcome two newly appointed council members who were just sworn in literally less than 30 minutes ago. I'd like to welcome Rebecca Ruan Shanisi. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, and also Lindsay Tornatore. Both Rebecca and Lindsay were appointed by the governor to serve on the council. Rebecca represents higher education. She joins us from the California Community Colleges Chancellor's Office, where she serves as the Vice Chancellor of Educational Services and Support. And Lindsay, appointed also by the governor, represents K through 12th education. She joins us from the California Department of Education, where she serves as the Director of Student Achievement and Support Division. Delighted to have both of you with us on behalf of the council. I'd like to extend a warm welcome. I think it'll be really, critical and crucial to have your perspective and to also have you join us at this time as we, today consider the action plan to guide the work of the council. The role of educational settings play a very important part in shaping students and very much looking forward to working closely with you as we look to strengthen the homelessness services approach and policies to support all students so that they're able to pursue their highest aspirations and succeed in life and in their career. I also would like to just take a few moments to provide some key updates at the state level. We're continuing to stay focused on the COVID-19 pandemic, very much continuing to be in a response mode, but also very hopeful and excited to see that the vaccination program and the rollout of vaccines across the state is going very well. As of today, the state has administered just over 15 million vaccines. And a few weeks ago, the state introduced an equity framework to ensure that 40% of all vaccines are going to the hardest hit communities. So we're, very proud of what the state is doing in partnership with cities and counties and many stakeholders. And then just, more specifically in terms of homeless service providers and people experiencing homelessness, we are continuing to work very closely with the governor's office, with the Department of Public Health, Department of Social Services, HUD, and many other partners on coordinating strategies to ensure that both people experiencing homelessness and shelter workers have access and are connected to the vaccine. So more on that during the staff report out. Moving on to rent relief. We are also very much, of course, focused on ensuring that families are able to stay housed. We know that this pandemic has also caused a lot of economic damage, and particularly as it relates to renters. many renters have been struggling to stay housed because they have not been able to pay their rent. So just last week on Monday, March the 15th, the state began accepting applications for the California COVID Rent Relief Program to provide financial relief to renters and landlords. This program is more than an application portal, which is available at housingiskey.com. It's really a system of support. We've established a local partner network that includes a number of community-based organizations from across the state that are providing assistance and support, connecting and bridging tenants and landlords to the rent relief program. Just extremely grateful to the legislature and to Governor Newsom, who continues to stay focused on keeping families housed, helping all Californians weather the many challenges that we have faced as a state. And then finally, let me just share that we're very excited, both as staff of BCSH and HCFC, but also as me as a chair of the council, that we're considering today the approval of the action plan to prevent and end homelessness in the state of California. This is a plan that I firmly believe will be a guide to ensure that we continued to make progress in terms of addressing homelessness across the spectrum with intention, with focus, with accountability, and with leadership. And just really want to take a moment to sort of acknowledge that the council, which serves as the Interagency Council on Homelessness, will be really the council as a body and the council as individuals has played a crucial role in developing this action plan. So it was not a plan that was shaped by staff. It was a plan that was shaped and developed by council members, by the governor's office, by key stakeholders, by individuals with lived experience. And I'm looking forward to the robust conversation that we will have as we consider the adoption of this plan. With that, I'd like to now hand it over to Evan to do roll call, and then we'll get right into the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary. So council members, I'll call your name in order, and then just let me know, give a yes or a present if you're here. So Council Chair Lourdes Castro Ramirez.
Yes.
Council Vice Chair Emilio Ramirez.
Yes.
Councilmember Amy Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Russell Atterbury.
Yes.
Councilmember Alexis Berries. Councilmember Gina Bucchieri Harrington.
Yes.
Councilmember Corinne Buchanan.
Present.
Councilmember Donald Kavir.
Yes.
Councilmember J.C. Cooper.
Present.
Councilmember Gail Gilman. Councilmember Jody Ketcheside.
Yes.
Councilmember Jennifer Loving. Councilmember Gary McCoy. Councilmember Tokes Omishakin. Councilmember Rebecca Ruan O'Shaughnessy.
Yes.
Councilmember Lindsay Tornatore.
Yes.
Councilmember Joe Ukashiba. And Councilmember Gustavo Velasquez.
Present.
Yes, thank you. And yes, we do have a quorum. Secretary?
Great, thank you, Evan. Let me just share a few other logistical remarks, and then I'll turn it over to Evan to go into a few additional technical directions. But just want to remind all members of the public that we will take public comment before any council action item. And for informational items, as time allows, So we will also provide time for general comments at the end of the meeting. This is an opportunity for any comments that are not agendized. And of course, to help our meeting stay on track and on time, please, if you can do your best to keep your comments related to the current item on the agenda, and to the extent possible, to keep your comments to 3 minutes. And with that, Evan, can you provide some additional technical directions?
Yes, no problem. So for members of the public who wish to comment, you may do so when prompted. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. For those connected through the internet, please take a moment to locate the raised hand icon on your screen. This will be used to signal if you wish to comment. For those joining us by telephone, you may press *9 to indicate that you'd like to comment. You'd then be called on to make your comment and have 3 minutes at that time. Secretary?
Great, thank you, Evan. Okay, so moving on with the agenda, we're now on agenda item number 2. And so this is an item to consider adopting the meeting summary from our February the 23rd special council meeting. Council members and the public have been provided with a draft summary. And so this is really an opportunity, if there are any questions or comments or corrections, I'd like to open it up to council members for any discussion. Okay, seeing none. Before proceeding, since this is an action item, we will accept comments from the public. And so just Evan, I'd like to turn it over to you to help us facilitate this portion.
Sure. Thank you, Secretary. So if anyone has a public comment for this particular agenda item, please raise your hand in the meeting window now, or press *9 if you're connected by telephone. And we'll give about 20 seconds just to see if any hands come up. All right, I'm not seeing any comments on this item.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Evan. So could I have a motion from the council on the meeting summary?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Roll call.
Sure, thank you. Council Chair Lourdes Castro Ramirez,
Yes.
Council Vice Chair Emilio Ramirez,
Yes.
Councilmember Amy Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Russell Atterbury,
Yes.
Councilmember Gina Buchieri Harrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Corinne Buchanan,
Yes.
Councilmember Donald Kavir,
Yes.
Councilmember J.C. Cooper,
Yes.
Councilmember Jody Ketcheside,
Yes.
Councilmember Rebecca Ruan O'Shaughnessy,
Staying.
Councilmember Lindsay Tornatore,
Yes.
and Councilmember Gustavo Velasquez.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. So we do have majority approval for that item.
Okay, thank you. So the meeting summary is approved. Moving on to action item number, not action, agenda item number 3, which is about adopting the HCFC action plan for preventing and ending homelessness. Before we open up for discussion, just again, I want to say how exciting it is that we're at this moment, and very pleased and grateful to each of you who have been part of shaping the HCFC action plan for preventing and ending homelessness in California. The action plan, I firmly believe, will move us towards a place where we can set clear goals and targets for reducing homelessness, It also provides, some concrete steps toward homelessness, and really, doubling down on our belief that homelessness should be a rare and brief and a one-time experience. But we know that in order for us to be able to do that, it requires coordination across systems and investments in prevention, sheltering, permanent housing, and also access to social services. By implementing this action plan, we're taking strides to get to the place soon, by ensuring that each agency and each council member that is actively working towards to carry this agenda forward is identifying how they will sort of contribute and essentially hold ourselves accountable to moving this plan forward together. The plan, as I mentioned earlier, is the culmination of many council meeting discussions, many one-on-one conversations with state departments, with the governor's office, and extensive stakeholder input with people from across the state. I'm very proud of the extensive planning process that has led us to this place where we're here today. Want to, of course, acknowledge that as we were shaping this plan, we've been aided and guided by consultant Matthew Doherty, who's played a key role, but also the leadership of our Deputy Secretary Ali Sutton and our Executive Officer Julie Lowe, and a number of other staff members. So very grateful for how they have been able to help guide and get us to this place. Just quickly, in terms of what the plan includes, it includes the activities that state departments who currently serve on the council are committed to meeting with specificity around objectives and a timeline. And some of these sort of early framing areas, or the framework, was shaped back in October of 2020. It has not changed much, but it does, of course, include a lot more specificity, because at the end of the day, we want to ensure that we're concrete in not only the activities, but also how we're going to measure our progress, collectively. The plan also includes background and explanatory content to help provide context, and it also proposes the creation of working groups that will enable us to take a deeper dive in terms of identifying strategies to move the needle in these action areas. And just a few other critical components that I think are important for us to not miss is that the plan also is very much focused on data analysis, establishing performance metrics, and enabling us really to be able to track our progress. And so I recognize that it's a 2-year plan and that there's some data that is still missing, but I'm also excited that just in a few weeks, actually in less than a few weeks, and a week and a half or so, the state will be launching our comprehensive homeless data integrated system. And so that data system will help inform and will help provide the baseline for additional data that we can then integrate into the action plan as we continue to move our work forward. Lastly, there's no right approach to solving homelessness. I think that again, it requires coordination across systems. It requires intention, and it really requires, multi-pronged approaches that include investing in prevention, continuing to support sheltering efforts, accelerating the production of deeply affordable housing, and also doing all we can to ensure that there's proper access and support to the social services necessary to ensure that individuals experiencing homelessness are able to not only move into housing and housing environments, but also be able to stay housed and receive the level of support and access that is necessary for them to be successful. So with that, I'm looking forward to the conversation, and I'd like to now just open it up for discussion from council members. This is an opportunity to share your perspective, comments, any corrections that you would like for us to make to the action plan. We did our best to get this action plan with sufficient amount of time to give you the opportunity to take a deeper dive, but also recognize that it's a pretty extensive document. So let me kind of stop there and open it up for discussion from council members.
So Secretary, if I can start by just giving a quick overview of the modifications that were made to the plan since we discussed it at the February meeting, and just give people a sense of where there were changes.
That's perfect. Thank you, Matthew. And also, I'll invite Ali to do the same thing. I think you're right. I think we have just a quick presentation to go over like the specific changes, and then we'll open it up for conversation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I want to thank everyone, including the public, for the conversation at last month's special meeting focused on the action plan. So we did do our best to try to address the feedback that came through that meeting. We also did hold meetings with the state departments who are represented on the council that resulted in some refinement of the language of some of the activities. In the previous draft, there were still some of the timeframes and the measures that were still to be determined. Those have all been fleshed out and identified in the draft that we're considering today. I really want to thank the teams and staff across the departments who responded very quickly to both scheduling meetings with Evan's heavy assist on that, and also quickly turned around, revised language, approved changes, and allowed us to get the draft out again last week. Through that process, I will say that there were no major modifications to the content. There were a few activities that were still under consideration at the time of the prior meeting that were added. There were a few activities that were removed or merged with others, and there were some activities that were broken apart into separate and distinct, but there really weren't any fundamental changes to the content of the plan or the intentions of the activities. One slight wording change I will flag is as we were embedding more education-focused activities, Objective 4, which focuses on asset building and wealth building and employment, was the logical place and the most aligned objective for those activities. But we added in a reference to educational opportunities into the description of the objective itself, just to make it crystal clear why those activities were aligned with that objective. One of the main areas of feedback at last month's meeting was the importance of trying to provide some prioritization to allow an understanding of where efforts would be focused. So as we discussed at last month's meeting, we used through the conversations with the departments, we tiered the activities into 2 tiers. First being the highest priority activities for implementation. So those things that are expected to have the highest impact, that are core functions of the state, like the effective deployment of resources and money, and also areas of increased focus of effort. And then the second tier are additional activities prioritized for implementation. So those are still very important activities, just don't rise to the highest level of prioritization. In the discussion there with departments, there were a couple of activities that felt like they didn't even quite rise to the number 2 tier. And if they weren't prioritized at that level, we decided that they either weren't specific enough or action-oriented enough to be included in the final action plan. But there really just were a couple of draft activities that through further conversation were determined to not reach these prioritization levels, with the intention that the action plan doesn't express every single thing that the state is doing, but zeroes in on the most important things. Other feedback at the last council meeting zeroed in on the working groups. So we embedded some language to provide a clearer description of the process for forming those working groups. We also responded to the feedback about the timing of the implementation of the working groups and the need to recognize the capacity of staff across departments to engage in multiple working groups at once. So the pace of those working groups formation was adjusted so that there's one working group projected or expected to be formed for each of the quarters coming up, starting with the first quarter of the next fiscal year, and then one to follow. Following those are listed in the action plan in the order in which they are expected to be formed, and also provides more information that makes it clear that HCFC will initiate the planning and define the processes through which those working groups will be performed and through which external stakeholders will be engaged into those working groups during the next quarter, so the last quarter of this current fiscal year, rather than try to describe all of those steps in the process in the document itself. An expectation that the team will be working on that. We'll come back to the council with more information on that in the future. And the final most significant structural change was the addition of an executive summary to help readers more quickly engage and understand the core focus areas of the action plan, the structure of the plan, and the information in more detail to follow. So something that's about 3 pages long, intended to be easily digestible and understood, and can serve as a standalone piece or as an introduction to the more detailed plan to follow. Those were the key changes that were made since the February 23rd special meeting. I'm going to turn it back to the Secretary and Deputy Secretary.
So on my end, just real quickly, I think Matthew does a really good job of going over just the minor edits. I did just sort of quickly before we move to sort of additional comments from the council. I did just sort of want to quickly, again, thank everybody for the partnership on this. It is an honor to lead the team of staff at HCFC, and I'm really proud of how we worked with you all and supported council members in developing this action plan. As drafted, it really is a clear and public commitment to delivering on the opportunities we have right now to build towards sort of a more equitable future in how we can prevent and end homelessness. So we know the challenges are daunting, and we know this action plan is ambitious. And I just, as the leader of our HCFC team, I just want you all to know that we as a team stand behind you and are ready to work with you all on delivering this action plan, and in partnership with both our state and local colleagues and our private collaborators that have been a part of developing this action plan, and also importantly with people with expertise from their own experiences of homelessness. So this is a really exciting moment to be at this juncture with you all, and I want to thank everyone for your collaboration and partnership to getting us to this point. And I know a few folks have said this already, but I don't think it can be said enough. A real sincere thanks to Matthew, Julie, and Evan for getting us to this spot. So I think with that, I'll hand it back over to you, Secretary.
Thank you, Ali. Okay, so we're going to open it up now for council member comments, remarks, any correction, any additions to the action plan.
So this is J.C. Cooper. I'll start. I really don't have any edits to flag. I just want to say that I really appreciate you listening in the last meeting and really incorporating a lot of the feedback that I thought was given into the plan. For example, the prioritizing and the tiers, and then really just think this is a really great step to have an action plan, and really applaud you guys for all of the hard work to put into it and getting it in the place that it is, and look forward to working and partnering with you guys to move it forward.
Thank you, JC.
This is Amy. I'll just follow up by also, thanking staff and the consultant team for really an amazing job. I'm so proud to be kind of part of this moment of adopting this plan. I think it's realistic in terms of work ahead for the state and for all the different departments that are part of the council, but also really inspiring. It's a much needed document in terms of providing leadership and coordination and partnership. So just I think this is a fantastic moment, and congratulations.
Thank you, Amy. I love what you said about this being a proud moment, and so glad that you share that sentiment, because we're all working kind of day in, day out, and I don't think that we do enough to sort of acknowledge and celebrate. And so when you said this is a proud moment, at some point we'll have to figure out how to celebrate the accomplishments that HCFC is continuing to make. So appreciate your comments, Amy.
Yep, this is Russ Atterbury, Undersecretary at Calvet. I completely agree. Echo those same sentiments. Secretary, you should be extremely proud of your team, and Al, you should be very, very proud of your team too. That's just really, I've read through it a couple of times. 82 pages of just great information. It's a great document. Matthew and Julie and Evan, it's just been a fabulous job seeing you guys do this. So it's really, really impressive. Should be very proud. I don't have any comments on any changes or anything like that. I'm just extremely impressed that you guys did so much work to get this done.
Thank you, Russell. So appreciate your partnership.
Hi, folks. Corinne Buchanan here. I think what impressed me when looking at all of the activities and objectives is how many of them are collaborative efforts across state departments, and feeling really thankful that we have this council to help bring those various state departments together to tackle these really important objectives collaboratively. So excited for the work ahead with other members of the council and other members of our state departments as we move these goals into action. So thanks.
Well said. Moving into action. It's great. Anyone else? If not, this is an action item, so this is also an item for public comment. And so if we don't have any additional comments from council members, I'd like to maybe ask Evan to help us with facilitating this next portion of public comment on the action plan.
Sure. Thank you, Secretary. So anyone who wishes to make a public comment, this is the time to find and press the raised hand icon on your screen. Or if you're connected by telephone, you can press *9. As a reminder, comments will be limited to 3 minutes maximum. Looks like we have a comment first from Jerry Londberg. Your line is open, Jerry.
Okay, let's try again. I'm Jerry LaLundberg. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I live in Petaluma, California. I too appreciate all the efforts that went in, the work that went into developing the action plan. I hope that my edits and modifications, which were sent to you today, will be accepted. The thing that stands out for me is that the emphasis on youth has not been balanced by attention to the next emerging homeless crisis, which is our elders. Mentions of youth in the report were 40-1 versus elders. The most glaring omission is that older people who become homeless are often people who are lower wage workers. They're living on Social Security or SSI and have about $1,000 a month. Home sharing with providers who have extra rooms is a viable and healthy way to overcome loneliness, provide low-cost housing because it's already been built, and serves to help individuals age in place. Another glaring omission is the lack of reference to the new California Master Plan on Aging, which is the only one of my comments that got added into the report. I think it's very important to understand that there are different stages based on age in homelessness. The recent state auditor's report also called out the group of people who have traumatic brain injuries who are way underserved. I would like to see the state and local programs, including the continuum of care, create a strong focus on private sector involvement. This can range from major corporate philanthropic engagement or particularly creative projects, local small business engagement, the promotion and support of the development of accessory dwelling units when homeowners or property owners are interested in using these units to house people who can call them formerly homeless. And the concept of shared housing should be developed throughout the state with appropriate tax credits for the providers. Approximately 20% of the in any given county are not able to work. These include elders on Social Security, people who are on SSDI, and people who are on SSI. This particular strategic plan basically ignores this fact. There should be a very concerted and focused effort for the state of California and the Social Security Administration to work together to make all of their processes much more expedited and efficient. The state of California should exercise its authority and its willpower to fix this situation so that people get what they need from Social Security quickly. The SOAR program was designed to do this, but it is very poorly coordinated. By that, I mean that people who need the services have to jump through multiple bureaucratic processes to find the service, and then they find out that it takes between 18 and 24 months to secure income that they're entitled to. This is a practical thing that the state of California could exercise its ability to reach out into every county and help these particular individuals move quickly into benefits which they are in fact eligible for. I'm running out of time. I appreciate what you say. I think there needs to be more work with law enforcement to stop sweeps. I think that there needs to be far more transparency.
Thank you, Jerry. Your time is complete. Please make your final comment.
Please read the things that I sent to you. It's in great detail.
Thank you. Next, we have a comment from call-in user ending in 6700. Caller, your line is open.
Yes, this is Joe Coletti with Urban Initiatives. And on behalf of the Southern California Continuum of Care Alliance, we would first of all like to recognize that the phrase trauma-informed now appears in the draft document as against the previous draft that you were looking at last month. And we like to acknowledge that it does appear, trauma-informed does appear in one of the key principles and practices in your current draft plan. However, we would like to recommend that trauma-informed design and care would either be included as a separate key principle and practice, or would be peppered appropriately throughout your action areas, and perhaps even noted in the executive summary. You know, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, SAMHSA, has developed the core components of trauma-informed design and care, and it's been widely accepted by public and private agencies working towards solving homelessness. So that's been happening increasingly at a federal level, and to a degree that's been happening here at a state level as well. But again, on behalf of the Southern California Continuum of Care Alliance, we would recommend that trauma-informed design and care would either be added as a key principle and practice in your current draft plan, or peppered appropriately again through your through the draft action areas, and perhaps noted in the executive summary as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. We have a comment from Kim Lewis.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Kim Lewis, representing the California Coalition for Youth. I want to thank you for the opportunity to provide comments today. And really want to appreciate the staff and team's work on putting this plan together, and know it is a living document, and appreciate that we will continue to use this to guide the work in the years ahead, and that it's not going to be another plan that just sits on a shelf and we have a lot of work to do. And I particularly appreciate the attention to youth and young adults in the plan, because we do know that the majority of chronically homeless adults first experienced homelessness when they were youth, 50% in some areas, and that there's an overrepresentation of young people of color and LGBTQ youth that are on our streets, very disproportionate. The attention to employment services and the focuses on that and economic supports, I think, will be critically important to ensuring that when we serve people who are experiencing homelessness and preventing them from experiencing homelessness, that they can go on to live successful lives. And I think I would just close with saying that CCY looks forward to working with you guys and participating in the work groups as you move forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And I do also want to note that HCFC staff did receive 2 letters in relation to this agenda item, which were shared with the council just prior to the meeting. The letters are publicly available and can be obtained by contacting HCFC staff. It looks like we have one additional public comment. So we have Ludmila Bade.
Hello, my name is Ludmila Bade, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak here. I really want to second what Mr. Lalonde spoke about senior services that support and focus that support seniors as we age. Some of the things that I would really like to see focused on or supported are how can we get into like part-time work and engagement for those of us who have the capacity to contribute to our communities but don't have the capacity to work a 40+ hour week, and if some of those could come with like partial benefits, that would be great. So it's not a black and white either or. I really would love to see the flexibility in housing situations, that those of us who need to change our housing location, because of either changes in our family or our economic status, can do so without getting basically cut out of the housing market, or having to go into an apartment setting, which for some of us feels way too constraining. Also, it's important that those of us who have chemical sensitivities can find environments where we are not, kind of tight in with other people who might be using chemicals that are harmful to us. I know those are fine-tuning things, but I'm just addressing those as some of the needs that people, as our bodies become older, we're more sensitive to certain things. Yes, have a history of lower wage, being cut in part of the working poor. I'm sure I'm not alone in that. Again, yes, tying in with the California Master Plan on Aging, that'd be brilliant. That's another government program, and it'd be great to see more support for that. Yeah, some of the things I'm looking for myself that I would love to help support is a kind of community living situation. I know that I'm not alone in no longer having a partner. My family situation has changed. Are there other people that I could share space with and not like live alone, or as I currently am, unhoused? Definitely supporting the trauma and recovery based programs that help support homeless people in whatever our issues are that ended up layering to create an unhoused, kind of marginalized situation that our lives have ended up where we don't have housing that works for us. I'm not asking you to fix all these for us. I mean, it's obvious our lives, but things that support that would be wonderful. And I think I want to close by saying that the housing first model is wonderful in that it doesn't it takes away the barriers to finding housing for people that have prison things or other issues that they substance issues. But I really want to.
Thank you, Ludmila. Your time is complete. Please make your final comment.
Yeah, I want to hear housing first not be used to eliminate or prevent access to other needed services that parallel our recovery, like such as tech help and mentoring, that will also help support us in becoming.
Thank you, Ludmilla. All right, I'm not seeing any additional public comments at this time.
Just give folks just a few more seconds, Evan.
Of course.
To show that we have about 132 participants, so it's a good participation. Okay, so if you're not seeing any additional public comment, we're going to go ahead and close.
I am not. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you all so much for your comments. Just, one note that I would make is that this is an action plan and it is a living document. And so we do intend to use this as a guide and bring this back to the council on a periodic basis to update and ensure that that it is true to the spirit of the intention, but also that it reflects ongoing sort of conversations and that we're not waiting 2 years before we make any sort of course corrections if we need to make changes. So it is truly a living document, and very much appreciate the comments that were shared today. So with that, I'd like to now bring it back to the council and ask if there are any additional comments, or if you are all ready for a motion to approve the action plan to prevent and end homelessness.
And Secretary, sorry, before we move on, it looks like we've had an additional council member join us. Tokes Omishakin, if you're there, can you please state that you're present?
I am present. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, good to be with everybody on a very important historic day. Thank you.
So glad you joined us, Tokes. Welcome.
Thank you.
Secretary, I'm wondering if staff could just provide their thoughts about the comment related to further highlighting trauma-informed care. My guess is that that was something that staff has already kind of thought about, and it would be great to get their perspective on that feedback.
Certainly, we can do that. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ali and Julie.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we saw a value for including it within the key principles. We unfortunately got some of that feedback a little after our discussion with you all last meeting, and so felt a little bit insincere to be adding in new objectives or new activities that you all hadn't had a chance to see before this meeting or provide feedback into. So we really did try to stay as close to what we all had discussed with you in the meeting last month, knowing that you all were to vote on something this month and there wouldn't be much time for amendments. I would just sort of reiterate the Secretary's point that we very much do see this as a living document. And I think that we'll continue to engage with you all on where that might make more sense. I do see some opportunity for us to further engage on that in some of our work group activities. So I do think that there's plenty of opportunity to make sure that we are raising that, even if it is only sort of mentioned in that one key principles area of the action plan. Matthew or Julie, anything else you'd want to add there? No, if you had not.
Thank you, Ali. Amy, does that answer your question?
Yes, Secretary. Thanks. I appreciate that feedback. I do feel like it's important for us to kind of move ahead and start implementing the plan. So.
Great. Okay. Any additional comments? And if not, we're ready for the motion.
This is Jody Ketcheside. So moved.
Manuel second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Roll call, Evan.
Absolutely. Thank you. Council Chair Lourdes Castro Ramirez,
Yes.
Council Vice Chair Emilio Ramirez,
Yes.
Councilmember Amy Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Russell Atterbury,
Yes.
Councilmember Gina Bucieri Harrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Corinne Buchanan,
Yes.
Councilmember Donald Kavir,
Yes.
Councilmember J.C. Cooper,
Yes.
Councilmember Jody Ketcheside,
Yes.
Councilmember Toks Omashakin,
Yes.
Councilmember Rebecca Ruan O'Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Councilmember Lindsay Tornatore,
Yes.
Councilmember Gustavo Velasquez.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. We have unanimous consent on this item.
Hooray. As Tokes mentioned, this is a historic day. I'm very pleased and excited that we have an action plan with, clear goals, a clear commitment to do all that we can as a council across state agencies and departments, and together with our many partners up and down the state to prevent and end homelessness. So appreciate everyone's engagement and involvement. Special thanks to members of the public that are continuing to push us, right, to continue to build on this initial work. Please know that your comments are taken to heart, and we will, continue looking for ways to strengthen this action plan. But again, thank you all so much. And again, this is a moment to celebrate. So clapping for everyone. Okay, so with that, I think we now can move to item number 4 on the agenda. This is an item that was a request that came from, I think, one of our council meetings. Allie?
Sorry, Secretary, just real quickly, I think if we have a quick minute, I think Julie just wanted to quickly provide sort of next steps around the action plan now that you all have approved it. Just we're already moving on to what's next. Just a quick minute before we move on to the next item, if that's okay.
Thank you, Allie. Thanks. So we're already going into action.
Yes,
All right,
and,
Julie.
and very much in the spirit of much of the conversation today around where we're headed with this plan. So just a little bit about where we're headed. We do have some final cleanup. We will be including opening statements, including quotes from our council members. There is a public release coming and distribution to both our members and our partners as soon as possible. We will be updating PIT numbers. As many of you know, the 2020 PIT counts came out just very recently. And so we'll be including those. That will be reflected in the draft, in the finalized version of the action plan. Council staff will be moving into sort of our work in developing both tracking and an accountability system so that we can really start to work towards a lot of the commitments we've made in this plan. We will begin working on the details of implementing the working groups, and we'll be able to report back on that. We will be providing an update at the June 17th council meeting of the progress we've made towards those next actions. So looking forward to sharing our progress. And I will turn it back to you, Secretary.
All right, that sounds great. Any questions from council members on next steps? Okay, hearing none, so we'll go ahead and move to item number 4 on the agenda, which is the a presentation by the California Debt Limit Allocation Committee. And I'd like to just again congratulate and introduce Nancy Robles. Nancy is the executive director of basically the 2 committees within the state that oversee state bond allocation, the Tax Credit Allocation Committee and the California Debt Limit Allocation Committee. Nancy, congratulations and welcome to HCFC. I understand that Gina Ferguson will be presiding over this presentation. This was a request that came from one of our council meetings, really to gain a better understanding on some of the recent changes to the regulations. Again, the importance of what happens within these committees to the work around expanding permanent housing opportunities is critically important. And so we very much appreciate the partnership that we have with Treasurer Ma and the committee, both the Debt Allocation Committee and the Tax Credit Allocation Committee. So with that, why don't I turn it over to you, Nancy, and see if you have any comments, and then we'll have Gina preside over the presentation.
Sure, thank you. It's great to be here. I appreciate you inviting me. That was a wonderful introduction. I don't think I need to repeat it. Just to let you know that although I'm new to this committee, I'm no stranger to the Treasurer's Office. I came on in the Lockyer administration, and I've worked at several boards, commissions, and authorities here. And I'm happy to be here and to help. And Gina Ferguson has been working on these initiatives, so I find it fitting that she give this presentation. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to you, Gina.
Thank you, Nancy. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. As Nancy said, we represent the California Debt Limit Allocation Committee, and that committee receives federal tax exempt bonds to allocate each year about $4 billion worth. This year, what we've done is devote the majority of that to multifamily housing. We've received about $4.3 billion in private activity bond volume cap. 3.7 of that is devoted to multifamily housing. And of that, we have divided that 3.7 into various pools. And this was part of the restructuring that took place last year. So I'll kind of go back and forth between what's going on this year and how we got to where we are. So in 2020, we spent quite a bit of time, the staff and the committee members and the stakeholders, evaluating the system by which the bonds are allocated. Several years ago, the bonds were undersubscribed, and we're using an existing system to allocate that had been in place for a while. But as it became apparent that bonds were going to be used more and more for multifamily housing, and oversubscription increased to the point where we had more applicants than we could allocate bonds to, those being bond issuers. And majority of that was going to affordable multifamily housing. The committee spent quite a bit of time looking at the system by which the bonds are allocated, and came up with the system with the participation of stakeholders and through various public meetings and discussions. So there is a new system in place this year, and I'll just give you the highlights of what that is. It is a competitive ranking system that has scoring criteria. It incentivizes the various different items, such as deeper affordability for tenants, really looking to see that the rents in the units that are being, the multifamily units that are being rented are affordable to a wide range of Californians, including extremely low income, very low income, moderate income. It also incentivizes some density, on-site building density, so we can get more units onto sites than maybe was being previously developed. There is also the establishment out of all of that 3.7 billion. That is divided into what we're calling pools, what SEDAC traditionally calls pools. So this is part of the overhaul of the system. Within that 3.7 billion that's available this year, the majority of that is devoted to new construction projects, with some of that resource allocated to preserving and rehabilitating existing as well. But given the fact that California is facing a housing crisis and a homeless crisis as well, the focus has really shifted to new construction. Within those new construction designations, there is a pool of money specifically for those that are building homeless housing, and also a pool that is for housing that's being built for extremely low or very low income individuals. And so that would include, some of that would naturally include homeless. So for this year, $559 million is set aside for homeless housing, and the criteria for that is at least 25% of the units in those projects are to be filled by those who are homeless or have been homeless. In addition to that, within that pot of money, there's a priority for projects or multifamily housing developments that have that are devoted 100% to housing homeless. So for example, if there is a 75 unit multifamily housing project, all of those units, those 75 units, would be set aside for homeless individuals that are coming once the construction is done. And what we're seeing this year, and we are in our first round of applications. We received them earlier this year, and we are looking to do an award on April 28th. So what we're seeing with this round of applications is there's enough applications that came in that are 100% homeless, that all or most of that first round of pot of money is going to go toward those type of projects. So that's exciting news. It's good to see that that level of interest in the program with this type of homeless housing. So that's one of our pieces. Another component of the system is that if the applications for that homeless pot of money are oversubscribed, most of those applications will fall into what I described as the extremely low or very low income pot of money. So for 2020, there's $671 million set aside for projects that are really targeted toward lower income individuals. And if we have a pool of applicants for that, and then if the homeless pool is oversubscribed, those will also join in that pool. And so those that are looking to house homeless get actually two chances in the competition. The extremely low and very low income pool, it has some different criteria as well. That pool requires that at least there's a what we call area median income. It determines the level of rents that tenants pay. And so for this group of applicants, the average area median income can be 50% or lower. So we're really looking to help lower income Californians find some permanent housing that's available, newly constructed. In addition to that, there's some criteria. There's a couple of ways to be eligible. One is if you have funding from Housing and Community Development Department, HCD. If you have state funding from that agency, you are eligible to compete in this pool. So we're looking for alignment across the state agencies. If HCD is determined projects they've determined that they are awarding those projects money, they get a priority within this pool. Another way to get in is if you have some other local public money. So again, your county or your city is committing funds to your particular housing development, at least 15% of the total development costs. So those are two criteria by which a project can be eligible for that pool of money. So really looking to align state goals, protect and serve the lowest income individuals, and make some priority awards for homeless housing. So I'm going to jump back into the other pools. I wanted to focus on those two because I would imagine that for you, those are of great interest. Other areas where we've designated some money, new this year is what we're calling the BIPOC pool. And that is set aside for Black, Indigenous, and other, Indigenous and other people of color. For 2020, that pool has just short of $112 million set aside. So we're really looking to be mindful about equity and the fact that this program has a lot of established developers that have been providing development and housing for quite a while, but we want to recognize that there are others that can contribute as well and have it. And so we've set aside a certain amount of money to ensure that emerging BIPOC developers are able to compete and develop in the communities of their choosing. So we're excited to see that also oversubscribed in this first round. We've got more applicants than we can award. We'd love to award everyone that we could that qualifies for all the program requirements, but that's a good start. We are happy that we are seeing interest in these different pools and the way the program is set up for 2020. In terms of geographic distribution, the committee was also thoughtful in the fact that we want to ensure that bonds and housing is developed throughout the state of California. And so a portion of that 3.7 million, a portion of that 3.7 billion, just shy of 1.5 billion was set aside for geographic regions. And then within that 1.5 billion, percentages of that were established based on the different regions and populations in California. So I'll name them off just for your information. There is a coastal region, a Bay Area region, City of Los Angeles, and then separately a County of Los Angeles region, an Inland Empire region, and a Northern region. So all of the counties within California fall into one of those regions, and they are able to compete. Developers in those areas that are building sites in those areas will compete for those pots of money, again, to make sure that our housing is not only serving the most needy, but also really geographically diverse, to make sure that it's not going unbalanced into one area. Those are the highlights of the new system. We also established some point categories if you're interested in the scoring system. I mentioned one, a density, a look at building densely. We're also looking at ensuring there's local and state money in the deal, so we're aligning. We're looking to see that there are on-site service amenities within the projects, and so things like educational classes, service coordinator, those types of things. Those are part of the scoring system, as well as cost containment and being near amenities that are important, like transit, schools, grocery stores, those sorts of things. I will say that while it is a scoring system, a lot of our applicants are scoring them near the at or near the maximum number of points. So that means even though these point scores are optional, to be competitive, a project really needs to score maximum points in all categories. So we are getting the benefit of all of these categories in the aggregate, in terms of most applicants are scoring full points, and then they go to a tiebreaker. And that tiebreaker is comprised of a bond allocation and a unit allocation, and a number of units ratio. So we're looking to spread our bonds across as many projects as possible and gain as many units out of those projects as possible. So that's the ratio for the tiebreaker. That's the general overview of what we've put into place for 2020. And I think I'm hitting my time limit. I don't want to go over, but I appreciate your time, and also appreciate being invited for us to present this information to you.
Thank you, Gina and Nancy. Do we have comments or questions from council members?
Madam Chair, this is Gustavo Velasquez from HCD. I just wanted to, well, that was first of all a great presentation by Gina and Nancy. Thank you both. I just wanted to put a finer point on the connection between what was just presented and the work of this council, because I think it's very relevant. The first point that I want to make is, these programs, whether whether affordable housing development projects are funded by the state or by local jurisdictions, they inevitably come to the tax credit program or the bond program, or mostly a combination of it, in order to secure full financing to produce affordable housing in the state. So these are the programs that make affordable housing happen in the state of California. And we know, as Gina pointed out, the demand for these programs this year, 2021, is unprecedented. I mean, we've never seen the level of demand going into the system that is capped at roughly less than $4 billion. We have a lot more demand than what is available in these programs. Yet, the state has been very strategic at prioritizing what the market is not producing to make sure that everything coming into this system, the increasing demand for credits and bonds, that the committees evaluate this, and they are sharp focused in addressing, first of all, projects that include a great number of units for formerly homeless persons, and also units that are have deep affordability, especially those at 30, 40, 50 or less % of area median income. Why is that so important? Because as we've seen the numbers, numbers are increasing pre-COVID from 151 to 161,000 homeless persons in California, and COVID, we know, could have easily exacerbated that. So we have to not only address the production of units for homeless persons, but also for those who may easily, especially again, given COVID, fall off the cliff and get into homelessness. And that's why we also need to prioritize units that are deeply affordable for persons that could be at the edge of coming into homelessness. So just wanted to make a fine point about this relationship between the work of these programs, the priorities of these programs, and the relationship with this, with the work of this council. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gustavo. Any other comments from council members? Well, thank you again, Gina and Nancy. Great presentation. I completely agree with Gustavo Velasquez's comments about the importance of aligning our efforts, within the overall framework for preventing and ending homelessness, creating more deeply affordable housing, creating housing that also integrates services it's a priority for us. And so the work that we're doing to align our efforts across systems with CITLAC, TCAC, HCD, HFA, HCFC, I think at the end of the day, we're doing so because this is the level of coordination and integration and systems alignment that is required to address the housing crisis in our state and to address the homelessness crisis in our state. So I very much appreciate sort of having the opportunity to have you all share with us the changes that are being made, and look forward to continuing to work in partnership with you all. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so moving on to item number 5. This is a presentation by Miles White. He's Assistant Director of Legislation within the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency. This is an overview of the governor's budget and also legislative bills. Miles?
And it's a great lead in with the presentation from CITLAC. Really always interesting to hear updates on that end. So everyone, again, Miles White, I'm Assistant Director of Legislation here at the agency. So today, going to just go through a brief budget update, legislative update, and also, however, it's not captured in the slides, I'm happy to provide an update on some recent great news out of our federal partners with the American Relief Plan. So I'll put that towards the end here. So happy to take any questions at the end. So yeah, Evan, go to the next slide, please. So this right now, in the March 23rd, we're in the middle of the budget process. The governor's budget included about $2 billion specifically for homelessness investments. Of that $2 billion, about $750 million is proposed to go to HCD for a continued expansion of HomeKey. Another $700 million, $50 million one-time funds to partners at DHCS to also acquire and rehab real estate assets for expanding Medi-Cal behavioral health facilities, and then another $250 million to DSS, or similar for acquisition and rehab for adult residential care facilities. So really about $2 billion total that's proposed in the governor's budget. Of course, still in the middle of ongoing budget discussions with our folks, counterparts in the legislature. So it's really exciting, investments in $2 billion here, and also this really dovetails to what I'll talk about a little bit later and some other one-time funds that we're anticipating to receive, not just for homelessness funding, but also rental assistance and other really critical resources from our partners at the federal government. So really interesting investments we have here. So Evan, if you could do next slide, please. So just pivoting from budget to state legislation, again, really exciting year, the first year of a two-year session, very early on in the process here in March, but really exciting so far what we've seen. Over about 50 bills have been introduced so far. It's really a critical item, not just for us in the administration, but also counterparts in the legislature. A lot of legislative interest in trying to just further our state's homelessness response. So it's a really exciting year. And today I'm going to go through a handful of the more significant bills that have been introduced so far and provide an update. So next slide, please. So the first bill is AB 71 by Assemblymember Rivas. This is the specific to homelessness funding and the Bring California Home Act. So really, critical funding bill that's been proposed so far. This would make several tax changes at the state level, which would potentially generate about $2.4 billion per year in dedicated revenue source for homelessness funding. It's currently structured very similar to the HAP program that the council administers. Currently, it contemplates a joint administration between Department of Housing and Community Development and the council. At a high level, about the similar structure to the homeless housing assistance program, about 40% to large cities, 60% jointly to continuums and care in counties, and additional set aside for $400 million, really for capital investments with developers. And also a provision that's a little unique compared to existing programs. There'd be bonus funding for based on performance, which would be predicated off of a statewide needs and gaps analysis. So definitely at this point, the one of the more larger proposals so far for a dedicated revenue source for homelessness. So next slide, please, Evan. And moving on to next bill, AB 816 from Assemblymember Chu. This is really focused on the homelessness planning efforts at the state and local level. So this bill at this point, and I'll also just preface, a lot of these bills, since we're so early on in the session, they've been just recently introduced, so very much in the early stages. But with this bill here, the intent is to make sure that state and local governments in particular are planning to make measured increases, in trying to, reduce the individuals experiencing homelessness. So I have the goal at this point of reducing folks experiencing homelessness by 90% by the end of the decade. It's also dovetails well with the agenda item that we went over today for the council's action plan. So really interesting work, and look forward to continuing to track this legislation, which would also establish a homelessness inspector general, which would be able to audit and verify that a lot of these local plans that would be contemplated in this bill would be enforceable and are actionable ultimately at the end of the day. So really interesting to see how this one moves forward. Next slide, please, Evan. So again, AB 1220, Assemblymember Luz Rivas. This is the Office to End Homelessness. It's a reintroduction of a similar measure that we were analyzed last year. This would establish the Office to End Homelessness, which would restructure the administrative framework of the existing council, includes several other technical changes and reporting and data collection requirements for the council, or the Office for COCs and other member departments. So another bill on this front that we're going to continue to track closely. And next slide, please, Evan. And the last bill that I'll discuss today, SB 234, Senator Wiener, is the Transitional Aged Youth Housing Program. So this bill is as $100 million it contemplates for transitional aged youth housing. So individuals 16 to 26, really trying to dedicate funding and capital and rehab, acquisition, development for housing units dedicated to transitional aged youth, which has been really discussed at length in the action plan and other discussions. So this is actually really kind of tangential to recent investments with HomeKey for the administration. So also continuing to look forward to working on that bill. So that is the extent of our more notable bills that we're tracking at this point. Happy to move on to the next slide here. And as mentioned at the onset, there's a lot of bills, so I just wanted to make sure we listen them all out for folks. We don't have time today to go over them, and I'm sure nobody would want to hear me go over all of these anyways. So happy to have more discussions on these with the council at a later date, or if there's any questions. And I would also just conclude at the onset, it's not in the slides here, but the federal government, so many folks are aware, recently passed a $1.9 trillion relief bill, the American Rescue Plan. And within those that relief plan, there was additional funding specifically for housing and homelessness. So I'll just give a quick overview of those recent investments that the state is intending to receive. So at a high level, the primary assistance that's going to be provided to the state is related to rental assistance, mortgage assistance, and also dedicated funding through the home program for acquisition and rehab of homelessness and very low income housing. That's really going to be a great addition to not just the state funding that we have proposed to the budget, but also some of the recent regulatory changes from CIDLAC. So it all starts coming together really nicely with a real huge infusion in investments from the state and also these federal funds, which will be really critical. So this funding, at a high level, about $26 billion nationwide in rental assistance. This is in addition to the over $25 billion that was allocated nationally last December through federal relief efforts. So all told, about $4.6 billion directed to the state of California for rental assistance. This is dedicated to low-income households who've been impacted by COVID, really trying to address the rental debt and ongoing rental assistance needs for our really critical populations. And then similarly, mortgage assistance, which was not contemplated the first round of federal relief back in December, was included in this round. And nationwide, about $10 billion was allocated, of which $1 billion will be made available to the state, which will help stabilize a lot of households, homeowners that have been impacted by COVID, and perhaps the mortgage forbearance requirements haven't gone far enough. So a lot of those fundings are available in the coming months, and we really look forward to implementing those and being, moving from there. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Miles. Very much appreciate the comprehensive overview of both funding, what's in the governor's budget, the numerous legislative bills that are both in the homelessness, primarily in the homelessness space. I think in total, our agency was tracking, what's the number, Miles? Is it over 300?
Over 300 bills, but I feel a little better knowing it goes down a little bit as we move on, but over 300 at this point.
In the housing and homelessness space. So a lot of activity on the legislative front. And then just, I'm so glad that Miles also gave an overview of the funds that we anticipate will be coming into the state under the American Rescue Plan, which will enable us to continue to respond and provide direct assistance to families hardest hit by this pandemic. So let me just sort of open this up and see if members of the council have any questions for Miles or comments?
This is Jody. I have a kind of a question for the council. Do we take position on bills or no, as a council?
I was going to ask the same thing.
I'm happy to take that. So that's a good question. So within our agency, we have other boards that have a formal kind of legislative process. The council does not. So I'm happy to talk about bills, but in terms of formal recommendations, that goes through the administrative process through the governor's office.
Thank you.
Hey, so I'll piggyback on that too. This is Russ Atterbury from Vets Affairs. I think in slide 17, there was a mention that it said the HCFC would administer the program. So I was just going to bring that up for something to, yeah, there you go. The last bullet would require the council to develop, implement, and administer the program. So just probably something that needs to be changed there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, man. Yeah, it's something, that's a good question, Russell. That's something we're going to continue to work on with the author's office on. It is really tangential to a lot of the work that Gustavo and his team at HCD have been with HomeKey. So we're going to continue to work on that one and find perhaps a better administrative entity.
And Russ, just real quickly on that, so that is always the ambiguity and sort of awkwardness of the council and our HCFC staff. So as you know, HCFC staff does administer HEAP and HAP. We don't have that come through the council per se. It's sort of two separate pieces of the puzzle that from a language and nomenclature standpoint catch us up quite frequently.
Yeah, and then I'll just add that, the within agency, as Miles mentioned, HCD, the Housing and Community Development Department, is one of the departments that administers much of the federal homelessness funding, ESG dollars. So having the HCFC team and HCD within agency allows for us to be able to coordinate across systems.
Miles, I have two quick questions, and one may put you on the spot a little bit. One is, do you know what the timing is for getting these funds from the American Rescue Plan? And the other is, I'm curious about whether you know whether the mortgage assistance program is it just for single family homes, or is that maybe available for properties of 2 to 4 units?
So on the first question, Amy, good questions. So specifically for rental assistance, which is the lion's share of the assistance that we'll be receiving. So Treasury has a little bit of an interesting kind of structure per the statute. Since the state is in the middle of the process of administering billions of dollars in rental assistance, they have within the statute a 40% of the total funds. So for instance, California is going to get about $2 billion. 40% of that will be released at first, and then subsequent tranches of funding will be made available once grantees, state, local, large jurisdictions start spending those dollars down. So they don't want to, they're trying to avoid swamping the system in a way, so providers and grantees are able to administer it in a very kind of steady fashion. So it is a little bit interesting, and that's they're supposed to make those funds available within 60 days of enactment, so probably early to mid-May. And then to your question on mortgage assistance, I can double check that. I also know, I hate to put Don on the spot here, but it's primarily focused on single family, but I believe there may be a provision there for 2 to 4, but I can't recall exactly off the top of my head. But
yeah, I'm not aware of a provision that specifically states the number of unit limitation, but one would at least think that for owner occupied in the conventional sense, a 1 to 4 unit property is considered single family. So I would say that, to your question about 2 to 4 units, I think that would probably be acceptable, but we still have to wait for Treasury to put out guidance on the mortgage assistance component, and that's expected to happen soon. So.
Great, that's super helpful. Miles, I guess I was just thinking too on the $5 billion that's been set aside related to homelessness, whether those could be matching funds for the HomeKey proposal. So I guess I was just thinking about timing on that.
Oh yeah, so Amy, on that part, so the $5 billion nationally, that's going through the HOME program, which has its own dedicated source, of course, of HUD requirements, which it's tangential to HomeKey, but I would say arguably a little bit more restrictive. So we're going to continue to work with HCD to figure out what best to how best to administer those that funding.
Thanks so much.
Right.
One last question for me, Russ Atterbury again for Miles again. Sorry, Miles just became the most popular guy here, I guess. The billions in the guidelines for the rental assistance. When will, even though the bill will be coming out, or we think it will be passed, and most likely, will there be some accompanying guidelines to come with that? I'm curious to ask if maybe those the rental assistance could be accompanied or combined with maybe federal dollars that also go toward rental assistance.
Yeah, so it's a good question, Russell. So one of the interesting challenges we have is we have essentially two rounds of federal rental assistance funding that's coming to the state. The first round, about 2.6 billion to the state, and currently ourselves at the state level and grantees up and down are in the middle of administering those dollars, and they are very similar in terms of income eligibility, reporting, a lot of other items, but there are some subtle changes that they've had. So to date, Treasury is really focused on making sure all grantees are able to get the first round of money really out the door and going. And then we expect subsequent guidance from Treasury on the second round, probably a little bit later this spring into the summer, once that first tranche of funding is going to be made available to the state and some of our larger jurisdictions.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we're going to have to invite Miles more often to keep us updated. Thank you, Miles. Very much appreciated. Thanks for joining us. I don't know what happened to my camera, but it seems like I'm in a yellow twilight zone or something, but I turned it off, turned it back on, and I can't figure out how to adjust the lighting. So I hope you can see me. But I think we're going to go ahead and move to item number 6 on the agenda, which is an opportunity for us to hear from departments and HCFC staff on just updates and all the good work that is happening across the state. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our Deputy Secretary for Homelessness, Ali Sutton, to help us facilitate this portion of the agenda.
Great, thank you, Secretary. So I will sort of start with a quick update on what the HCFC staff have been up to since our last meeting. So the Secretary alluded to some of the exciting work going on around vaccinations. Wanted to make sure that everyone on the council was aware that CDPH put out new guidance specifically addressing people experiencing homelessness and staff that serve people experiencing homelessness, making them all eligible for vaccine as of March 15th. This has had really significant impact already. Locally, we've been hearing some really great stories of folks acting quite quickly to get people experiencing homelessness vaccinated at vaccine events. So to pair with that guidance, HCFC has actually partnered, I think I might have mentioned this at the last meeting, but we've partnered with UCSF, Bending Off Housing and Homelessness Initiative and the California Healthcare Foundation to put out a few resources that we thought were critical for folks in thinking through next steps. The first one was around planning for when we would have people experiencing homelessness as part of the prioritization. So lots of great information about how best to prepare, how to set up vaccine events, who to partner with for that kind of work moving forward. We also released 2 additional pieces of guidance or resources last week. One around lessons learned from some of the more recent groups that have done events and have done some mass vaccine events, and sort of just what they've learned from that experience. Obviously, it's very new and early, but want to make sure that as we're learning across the state, everyone is benefiting from those learnings. And then also had a resource put out specifically around how to think about the unique needs and challenges of our unsheltered population in getting vaccinated, and how to think through some of the additional things that need to happen to make sure that those folks are supported. So some great information there. We will continue to do that sort of work and that sort of resource pushing out as it makes sense, and we're hearing more information from folks. We did have a really great vaccine webinar with a handful of partners last Friday, including HUD, CDC, our CDPH partners, Blue Shield, and HCD. So just really important efforts around coordination that's happening throughout the state, but also with our federal partners and making sure that this population is supported in getting vaccinations. So lots of good work happening there at the council level. Also, I think our secretary did mention in the introduction, our homeless data integration system is imminently to be launched. So we are very excited that is in sort of its last legs of preparations. We are hoping it could launch as early as next week. So stay tuned. We'll be doing a public launch webinar when that is live to walk through folks what we have learned and how to use the system that will be up on our website. So just a reminder for folks, I know we've talked about it a few times here, but it is a little bit of a dense thing to wrap your head around. But this warehouse will really integrate data from all 44 continuums of care, really allowing us for the first time as a state to be able to understand how many people we served across the state in the homelessness response system throughout a calendar year. It also will go back 5 years, so we will have historical data that we have been seeing some really interesting trends and being able to understand our progress over year. And this is will help us have sort of an ongoing and holistic picture of how we assess and improve services, something we don't currently have today in the way that our data is collected and dispersed across the state. So lots to learn. This first launch of information that we're hoping to happen next week will just be the beginning. There is lots more, many more onion layers to peel back around what we can learn from this system. And so we will expect to be doing quarterly launches of additional data and analysis even after this is launched, hopefully next week. So lots of good work to happen there. And we're really excited to be able to share that with everybody here soon. And then finally, just on our grant side on HEAP and HAP updates, we recently published a summary report of all the annual reports from our HEAP and HAP grantees. It can be found on our website, but just some very quick highlights. Over the course of approximately 2 years, we found that HEAP grantees have served over 65,000 people with their funding, a really impressive number of folks, and that nearly 25% of those served identified as chronically homeless. About 9% were unaccompanied youth, and about 5% were veterans. Also finding that about 13,000 of those folks that were served have exited into permanent housing already. So some really great data pulling out from HEAP. Also did have some information pulled out from HAP round 1. It was only about 5 months of data to collect. So some early learnings that we're seeing from that, or some early success. They served that HAP grantees have served about 5,000 folks already. I will just sort of note the one thing that looks significantly different from how HEAP has been spent. About 41% of those served so far in HAP were identifying as chronically homeless. We think that's partly because a lot of this funding has been used on new emergency shelters and navigation sites and room key efforts to keep folks safe during COVID, but an interesting thing that we will be tracking as the program continues. So that's sort of the quick bit of what's going on at HCSC. I know many of you did also submit written updates on what your departments are doing that can be found on our website, but did just want to give it a chance for everybody to quickly provide some additional updates from your department or highlight pieces of what you submitted in. So maybe can start with, oh geez, the box has just changed. Start with JC if you want to provide an update from DHCS.
Sure. All right. So a few updates in regards to, I'm going to focus on CalAIM for the purposes of our update. As many of you know, we reposted an updated CalAIM proposal in January of this year. And to kind of go into a deeper dive, we recently did a public walkthrough of the enhanced care management and what we call in lieu of services, which is not the best name, but essentially it is where we have our housing suite of services it's referenced in the action plan. We did a public walkthrough of those proposals. And we posted for public comment on February 6th, the enhanced care management in lieu of service contract template. That's the contract both between us and the managed care plans, as well as the managed care plans and the contracted entities who would be providing some of those enhanced care management in lieu of services. We provided what's called the model of care template. So what our managed care plans would have to submit to the department in regards to filling the expectations of those benefits. The timelines of those pieces were included in that. And then we also included the coding guidance for those services. So one of the pieces, once we start including enhanced care management in some of the housing services in Medicaid, is we will have to have that encounter and data flow from those community-based organizations to our plans, and then ultimately from the plans to DHCS. So we released some guidance for feedback in regards to the codes and process we would be requiring through CalAIM. We do know that that in particular is going to be a challenge when you take non-medical providers or community-based organizations who aren't used to billing in a health environment. There's going to be a lot of technical assistance that we need to provide those individuals and or to the plans to ensure that there are options for how that data flows from the local level up to the department. So we also did a presentation and are working on what we call the CalAIM Data Exchange Roadmap, where we're really thinking through how do we better leverage those data flows and information from local community-based organizations that will be in this work, whether that's counties, CBOs, or others, in regards to those requirements, so they understand what would be required to come up. We also in the future will be releasing, I believe we're estimated for late May or June, feedback on our incentive program. So one of the pieces in CalAIM is around releasing incentive payments to help build capacity around our various enhanced care management in lieu of, and in particular around the housing suite of services that we have, and how we're going to measure success in that, how we're going to ensure managed care plans are offering that to us statewide. And so that incentive plan will be out for public comment later this summer, also for people to weigh in and provide feedback to DHCS in regards to how we should increase capacity and infrastructure across the state, and what we should be measuring so that we can put that report card or dashboard in place pretty short order after launching CalAIM. So I think that would be the majority of my update at this time.
Great, thank you very much. Gustavo, are you able to join next? Or he might have had to hop off, didn't he? That's right. So his HCD did provide some written updates though for folks that are of interest. That is on our website, as I mentioned. Don, do you want to go next for CalHFA?
Sure, I'll go ahead. Just very quickly, CalHFA's Special Needs Housing Program is got about 22 multifamily projects totaling about 1,281 units that are currently in sort of an active application process and a funding commitment process. We also have the 26 other projects totaling about 1,883 units that are actually in construction at the moment. And this program is, as I've mentioned previously, winding down with CalHFA, but we still have quite a pipeline of projects to get to the finish line, and the scheduled finish line for all these units is June of 2022. So in the next couple of years, we're going to have about 3,000 units that are sorely needed put into service. So we're excited about that. Additionally, CalHFA is administering a national mortgage settlement counseling program, which is providing counseling services up and down the state for both homeowners and renters to help them avail themselves of the various protections that are in place currently. And once those moratoriums are lifted, to help them sort of reestablish themselves and deal with some of their housing needs. Staff have given me some preliminary estimates from the standpoint of the renter population, that we think that the program is going to serve approximately between 12 and 17,000 renters based on sort of the conversations that we've been having with the various counseling agencies up and down the state that are a part of our program. And right now, just for context, I think we have 3 HUD intermediaries and 500 counselors up and down the state that come from 74 different counseling agencies that are facilitating this service. So, and that's my update.
That's quite a bit. Thank you. Gina, do you want to provide an update on Cal OES?
Sure, thanks. We submitted some pretty great stats on our programs. We just completed our joint legislative budget committee report that focuses on all of our victim services programs that include homelessness. That should be out in the next couple of weeks. We'll post it to our website, but it has some fantastic statistics about all the different programs. There's about 80 programs in total that we administer at Cal OES. A couple of highlights to note: 4 of the programs that target homeless, primarily the homeless youth and human trafficking victims. These offer sheltering, transitional housing, and rental assistance. We, for 2020, had 33,717 received emergency shelter assistance, 47,290 received transitional housing assistance, 24,000 received rental assistance, and 146,094 have received stabilization planning, case management, and 438 received employment and education training and services. That was in 2020. Just a little bit on our recovery disaster response data. Project Roomkey acquired 13,492 rooms for the homeless population, and 9,141 rooms were occupied. So we have some great statistics: meal support, Housing for Harvest, Project Hope, Great Plates. So do refer to the report that the council puts out. There's some more information there.
Great, thanks so much, Gina. And that actually nicely transitions into Corinne, if you want to provide an update from DSS.
Yeah, absolutely. We have brief updates on each of our programs in the written material, but I'll just share an update on the Project Roomkey effort, which, as a reminder, is our non-congregate sheltering effort across the state for people experiencing homelessness, state supported and locally administered. So I pulled the numbers before our meeting, and tonight there will be over an estimated 12,000 individuals who are still residing and receiving safe shelter during the pandemic through Project Roomkey across the state. 2 big announcements to share since our last meeting. One is that FEMA, the Biden administration, shared that FEMA reimbursement would move from 75% federal cost share to a full 100% federal cost share for Project Roomkey, which we underscores the importance of this effort in responding to the pandemic. In addition, in order to help communities figure out how to do this whole FEMA thing, we have brought on a technical assistance provider called Population Change Institute, and they have helped us by creating some really nice guidance materials, including what I like to refer to as our cheat sheet, or an annotated project application to help folks at the local level submit requests for reimbursement to FEMA for the work we're doing under Project Roomkey, which totals almost $1 billion in activities across the state. So really important investment from the federal government to do what is what we did in California, a first in the nation response to the pandemic for people experiencing homelessness. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks so much.
Great, thanks so much, Corinne. Rebecca, I know you are new, but I know you also did submit a written update. So thank you for coming in strong on your first meeting. Do you want to provide a quick update as well?
Sure. I'll just provide 2 kind of updates. One is the California Community College system, the CSU system, and the UC system together has this intersegmental working group called the California Higher Education Basic Needs Alliance, also known as CHEBNA. So really this group comes together to address student basic needs, which includes housing, and it encompasses all our students across the 3 segments. CHEPNA is in the process of organizing a basic needs learning series, digging really into 6 to 7 major areas, including financial aid, accessing housing resources for students, food security, health and mental health, equity and service access, etc. Really try to spotlight best practices inside and outside of the education system, and then also build capacity within our systems to do kind of this kind of cross system work. So these events will take place over the next few months, and we obviously are open to any kind of recommendations and thoughts anyone has to kind of help us strengthen our learning and capacity building. And the second piece is within the community college system, we're in year 2 of implementing the Homeless and Housing Insecure Pilot Program, the HIP program. And it's a $9 million annual funding. It's ongoing funding. Currently, the pilot is active at 14 of our community colleges. We have 116 colleges within our system. And so clearly, this is not a totality of housing-related services we're providing, nor is it the totality of funding dedicated to housing services, but this is kind of like the one dedicated line item. So housing and food insecurity are 2 of the most significant barriers our students experience in terms of persistence, completion, and transfer. So we're still, this program itself is still nascent. And like I said, in addition to this program, colleges are doing one-off initiatives to try to support students. So, and then we are also trying to set up infrastructure for colleges to effectively identify students in need and triage the needs and providing referrals and direct services accordingly. But what we really want to focus on next, in addition to continuing the good work that's happening, is to really focus on data, which I find a lot of alignment with what this council has been talking about, so we can be more intentional with our work. We actually started with a system-wide student basic needs survey commissioned by the legislature in 2018, and we worked with the Hope Lab to conduct survey. That was our actually first ever survey around homeless students and housing insecure students. So some of the key data from that survey at that time, out of the 40,000 students responded to the survey, 50% of them reported food insecurity, 60% of them reported housing insecurity in the previous 12 months, and then 19% of them reported having been homeless in the previous 12 months. Again, those data is kind of really staggering. So for us, it really highlights the importance of us to really focus on this as a key basic needs component. We want to dive deeper, refine our theory of change and data collection process, and then try to really answer questions like, who are we really serving? Who are we not serving? And what do effective interventions look like for whom, right? And then what are kind of the service gaps, and then ultimately how these services are impacting student outcomes. So again, like a lot of things are happening. We're very excited to kind of share those updates with the council. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Rebecca. And Lindsay, I know you had an update as well, so if you want to share a bit as the newest member.
Yes, so good afternoon. So at the Department of Education, we have an exciting update. We are in the process of reviewing the 122 LEA and County Office of Education applications that we received for the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act funds. These funds are federal funds under Title I Part A that are eligible to LEAs and county offices and used to protect and ensure the educational rights and protections for children and youth experiencing homelessness. California has approximately $11.6 million that we will be allocating out to the eligible LEAs and county offices. The funds are determined based on a formula based on the number of students experiencing homelessness in their district or county. And we will be posting the preliminary award amounts and notifying in late April. So that will be coming, and this is for a 3-year cycle. And we are just very excited to be able to help to roll these funds out again. Also, I just wanted to give a quick update and draw everyone's attention. We created a COVID-19 resource page for resources for school administrators, counselors, and other staff related to identification strategies for students that might be experiencing homelessness. In California, in the K through 12 system, we have approximately 200,000 students identified in our data, and we know there are more out there. So identification is the gateway towards being able to provide support and services. So we encourage all of you and everyone on the call to take a look at those strategies and share them widely. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lindsay. Really appreciate our two newest members coming in with those kind of updates for the group. Russell, do you have anything you'd want to share for Calvet?
I didn't provide a written response, but I do have a quick update if you got a couple extra minutes.
We do.
I'd like to talk about the Veterans Housing and Homeless Prevention Program that HCD and HFA help run for us. And so there's round 6 guidelines have been, draft guidelines have been put out. So just I'm gonna read to you for a quick second, just so any listeners out there that aren't aware of what the VHHP or the Veterans Housing and Homeless Prevention Program is. It's basically Prop 41 in 2014 gave $600 million for the designing, developing, and administering a veteran multifamily housing program. So we've been doing that for the past 6-7 years now, since 2014. And now we are up to round 6, which each round has given out roughly $75 million for those developments. And now the round 6 guidelines, the draft guidelines are out. And I believe a webinar is coming up at the end of this month on March 30th to talk about those guidelines for stakeholders. And that'll be another $75 million to go out for vets that will serve at least 50% of the funds are awarded to veterans household with extremely low incomes. So that's a great program for us, and you guys help us with that tremendously.
Great.
That's all I have.
Thanks so much. So lots of work happening across the state, clearly. So with that, I'll hand it back over to you, Secretary.
Yes, couldn't agree. A lot of good work. Thank you all so much for your leadership. Great reports, and a lot more in the written report for those of you that are interested in, getting a hold of the overall council board packet or council packet. So with that, I think we're ready to move on to item number 8. And we may be adjourning early. We'll see. It's 4:03, and I was going to ask if folks needed to take a break, but should we just power through the next maybe 15 minutes? Okay, let's power. Let's go. Item number 8, public comments and final remarks. So this is an opportunity for council members, if you have any final comments, questions, also, any suggestions for future agenda items? This is an opportunity for us to kind of make note of that. And then we'll open it up for public comment. Members of the public can, also provide comment on any item that's not on the agenda, or an item that was on the agenda if they, if there was something additional that you'd like to share with us. So let me open it up first for council members. Any final lingering questions or remarks?
Yeah, last question I have, again, Russ, are we going to get a demo of the new HDIS before it goes live?
Great question. Allie.
So unfortunately, because these are public meetings, it is live if we share it with all of you in these meetings. So sort of a Bagley-Keene challenge, but we will make sure that you all are made aware of our public launch webinar. We'd really love for you all to join and listen in. And at the next meeting, I think we can absolutely go into a little bit more detail and walk everyone through how to use the system and where we hope to go with it. Absolutely. So sorry for the timing there.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, I'm going to ask Evan. Evan, if you can open up public comment portion here and help us facilitate through that.
Sure. Thank you, Secretary. As a reminder for anyone who'd like to make a public comment, this would be the time to raise your hand on your screen or press *9 if you're connected by telephone. As a reminder, your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. So it looks like we have a comment from Sally Hewitt. Sally, your line is open. Oh, sorry about that. A little bit of maybe we'll come back. Looks like we have a comment from call-in user ending in 6700.
Yes, this is caller 6700. This is Joe Coletti, Urban Initiatives. I would like to encourage the council to do whatever it can to encourage all of California's 44 continuums of care to conduct an unsheltered point-in-time count in January 2022. The impact of COVID-19 pandemic on unsheltered homelessness really needs to be informed by a statewide, regional, and local unsheltered point-in-time counts, to be conducted in 2022. You may know that HUD does not require COCs to conduct an unsheltered count during the last 10 days of January in even number years, only in odd number years. But you may not know that 21 COCs do not conduct an unsheltered count during even number years. Of the 21 COCs, 16 that do not conduct an unsheltered count during even number years are in Northern California, 3 in Central California, and 2 in Southern California. So in other words, only 7 of 23 Northern California COCs conduct an unsheltered count during even number years, which again is not required by HUD. 5 of 8 Central California COCs do, and 11 of 13 Southern California COCs conduct an unsheltered count during even number years. You may know that if a COC does not conduct an unsheltered count during an even number year, the unsheltered count from the previous odd number year is carried over by HUD and considered their unsheltered count for the following even number year. So we don't get really true unsheltered count data, just like now in 2020, which HUD just released the 2020 homeless count data nationwide. But I'm sure you would agree that homelessness in the coming post-pandemic world may be notably different, will likely be notably different from the pre-pandemic world, right? And then the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on unsheltered homelessness really needs to be informed by a homeless count by all 44 continuums of care. Otherwise,
thank you,
California,
caller. Your time is complete. Please make your final comment.
Okay, we're going to be left with comparing the 2019 point-in-time data to 2023 point-in-time data. My last thing that I want to say is that HUD is considering requiring a 2022 unsheltered count.
Sorry about that. We have a comment from Steve McNally.
Hello, my name's Steve McNally. I'm from Orange County, and I learned a lot. My primary focus is mental health, but given homelessness or suicide, there's some things that are just always on the table. I'm very interested in the $250 million set aside for the ARFs. And I don't know if you guys you probably can't respond today, but I'm trying to figure out who are the key players at the state level and who are going to be the key players at the local level. I've talked to community licensing. I've talked to the people who do our housing through our healthcare agency with the homeless and whatnot. And everyone seems to be aware of the dollar amount, but not the details. And I watched a hearing on the health committee, and there was a lot of stuff there too, but no details. And given that's a key missing component in our continuum of housing, not everybody can go into $400,000, $700,000 units. It's really important to me and to my family and to the other families that I know. And thank you. I'm going to look forward to seeing the meeting packet, particularly some of the more thorough meeting reports that were discussed from the college community. And thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you for your comment. We have a comment from Jay Cole. Jay, your line is open.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you. I just learned about you guys yesterday from Tim Huchin, who is in charge of Hope for Restoration. But my organization is called Thank You Jesus TV, and I was recently up in Sacramento trying to talk to the governor about some of this stuff. But as you know, that's been a bit of a challenge. I appreciate all that you guys are doing, and I know that we're under some major challenges, but recently I set up a private church. I have an apartment that is a church, house church, and I set up a private shelter there. And the manager of the place is discriminating against people and not allowing people to stay there. I mean, private enterprise is a big solution. Churches are a big part of the solution. And I know that the government has a hard time doing that, but to advocate and kind of open up some of these doors to where I don't know if we can file a lawsuit against the manager of this place. It's probably not appropriate path, but so I have capacity for like 13 people, including myself. But we tried it for about a week and a half. It was a little bit crowded. We didn't have full capacity. I just think that these private solutions, the churches can open up their doors. And if you guys can lay out some rules to help doing that and to stop discrimination by managers. I mean, anybody on the streets trying to get an apartment, if they get a Section 8 voucher, they can't get in. The managers discriminate against them and the owners of the property. And I don't know what kind of things can be done. I'm at 225 Knott Avenue in Anaheim, California. 92804 is my address. Suite 36. I would love to see this property turned into some permanent supportive housing. We're working on trying to find the private funding for that. This housing crisis is devastating for millions of people. I had a person in here, I had to put them out on the street because the manager, I mean, this person could die. And that's not, I personally have experienced homelessness. I don't want to do that again. I just really think that we need to get more. I appreciate hearing what everybody says. And if we can just take some more action against managers and apartment owners to stop this discrimination against people that are trying to find housing and stuff. Open up creative solutions. I mean, there's a lot of creative solutions. And I think the state, the city, and counties can take a more broader solutions to that. And so thank you for this time.
Thank you for your comment. Let's try to go back to Sally Hewitt. Sally, I see your hand raised if you'd like to make a comment.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to push that button.
No worries, thank you. All right, I'm not seeing any more comments at this time.
Thank you, Evan. And thank you again, members of the public that have joined us and provided comments. We really appreciate your participation and the feedback, suggestions, and comments that you provide. You know, this is how we do policy here at the state, by ensuring that the policy and the programs and the development of action plans, as we adopted the action plan, is really centered on what is happening on the ground, and having the ability to be able to hear directly from members of the public helps reinforce where we need, where we're doing things in alignment, and where maybe we need to continue to have more conversations. So very much appreciated. I know that we have lost a few members of the council, and so I don't think we have a quorum, but do not despair, because we don't have any other action items except to adjourn today's meeting. And just again, as we end the meeting, just want to express my sincere appreciation to each of you council members for your leadership and your active involvement and engagement. I'm really excited at the level of conversation, the level of engagement that has been really sort of evolving over the last several months. And now, with the adoption of this action plan, I'm just looking forward to continuing to drive our work with each of you, helping to lead or co-lead some of the action areas. So with that, thank you all so much. Great meeting. Welcome again, Rebecca and Lindsay. Great to have you on the council. And good job, Evan. Very professional all the time, helping us to pull these meetings together. And great job, Ali and Julie. Very much appreciate your leadership. So have a great afternoon. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.